Hello? Oh my god, it worked. Okay, good. Okay, I was very worried that I had unplugged the mic and everything was gonna go absolutely terribly wrong, but we're fine. Hello, pals. Welcome to the third Disability Pride stream. How are we all doing today? Hello, hey Rue, hey Tresme, hey Bill, hey Chrome. How are we doing today? Um, also, Hux, you're muted by the way.
I thought I was still supposed to be muted.
Oh,
I just
I'm so
immediately
sorry.
forgot any of the instructions that you gave me. I was like, okay, I'll go on mute and then I guess I'll die. Like I'll just stay here forever.
I'll just stay here forever. Hello, hey Holly. Welcome in, pals. I am here with the absolutely wonderful LittleHux, who is one of my dearest friends and like one of the most talented people I know ever. So I'm very grateful that they are here. Um, and unfortunately, Rue was too sick to be here, so I'm very, very sorry that I will fill in. I will pretend to be as beautiful as they are. Um,
Get well soon, Rue.
but yeah, so we're just gonna have a cute little chat before I dive into that. And get Hux to introduce themselves. I just want to give a big thank you to our sponsors today because we have three of them, which is absolutely bonkers. So thank you to Splash Damage, thank you to Elgato, and thank you to Molk, who are three very wonderful companies. I love them all very, very much. So I want to thank them for sponsoring the stream. It is very, very much appreciated. Thank you. And so now on to Hux. Hux, would you like to tell us about yourself, what you do, all the magic you
Yeah.
create?
Hi. Hello everyone. Thanks Molly for having me on here. So in a little bit of difference from the vibe of everyone else I think has been working in gaming now. I'm an author. My stage name is Lizzie Huxley-Jones, but everyone calls me Hux. You're very welcome to refer to me that way. I write children's fantasy adventure for kids and adults and queer Christmas romance for adults. They're not for children. But all my work in books is telling joyful stories about disabled people, primarily queer and disabled people, but putting disabled people in the roles of main characters rather than the side characters. And I've also worked a little bit in mobile gaming and in TV doing similar things. So I'm kind of like all over the place. But books is the main place you will find me, and also on Twitter because I will be there until it literally
Until it
falls apart.
implodes.
I mean, it's already going
Yeah, we're
going out.
getting there. Who knows if it'll be around, but we'll make it work. Hey Bombas, how you doing? And if anyone doesn't know me, like if you're new to the stream or anything, I'm Molly. Hi. I go by like LittleMoTAC or LittleMoTAC Gaming everywhere. I play games and like make YouTube videos about diversity and inclusion and stuff. I never know how to introduce myself. I don't know what my job is. I just like make stuff up as I go along and like hope for the best. So that's me. But this stream is one of like a series of, well, it was originally four. It's now been six. Um, Streams for Disability Pride Month, which is every July is Disability Pride Month in the UK and the US. And I basically got so sick of, as Huck said, like most of this is revolved around gaming, but just in general, like no one talking about Disability Pride Month. So I was like, I'll do it. I'll make it up as I go. And we'll just see what happens. And luckily, some wonderful companies wanted to be involved. Luckily, some wonderful people wanted to be involved, so I'm very, very thankful. And so now we're here, and this is not number three. This is technically this is number four, but like it's number three of this series. But we did like an extra one on Wednesday, and the VODs are all going off on YouTube. So if you want to catch up on them, if you haven't seen them, they'll be up on YouTube at some point in August when I have edited them or got someone to edit them. So that's my intro. um,
And
so
you've done so amazing though. Like honestly, like I think the response you've had has been so good, and it just shows like how needed the and wanted these
mm-hmm.
kinds of conversations and spotlights on disability in games and the gaming industry and being a content creator. Like, people want that. It's really nice that the companies he sponsored recognize the value in that
Mm-hmm.
as well. But like, I'm so proud of you. You're absolutely killing it.
Thanks.
You
I
can't be
thank
nice
you.
about me without me being nice about you.
I just like, I literally just was like, let's see how much stuff people will say yes to. And then we just ended up with this. So that was really nice. And hopefully like next year bigger and better. And I think I tweeted about this like last week or something, like the response to like even just the tweets about these streams has been like huge. And I did like bigger than I expected. And so I like tweeted, I was like, people, I just want it to be known that people care. People care about disabled people. Disabled people exist in these spaces. Like, they would love it if you did stuff for Disability Pride Month. And I think like the most, this is so sad, but the most like exciting thing I've had in my Disability Pride Month is like Halo. I don't even play Halo, but like Halo added a Disability Pride flag as like a
Aw.
player banner. And I was like, oh, they care about us. They're giving us little crumbs. Thank you. So if more companies did that, that'd be so cute. That'd be so rad. So thanks. But now that I've had my little ramble about, I do this like every stream where I go on a ramble of like people should do more. And then it won't happen. I don't want to get my hopes up, so it's fine.
I think it's incremental though, right? Like, you know, every act of doing more normalizes it. And so
Mhm.
that's how I try and like keep it in my head, because I would love it if like things changed in an instant. You know, you're in games, I'm in publishing, which is a notoriously slow industry. Like, I
Mhm.
feel like when Stacey was talking about a couple of streams ago about things in AA games taking like a long time to come through, I think Laura was talking about it as well. Feel like that's the way in publishing as well, because we're so often working like years ahead.
Mhm.
But you know, I just try and remember that like any good that happens and then is hopefully repeated and normalized is like a net increase.
Mhm.
I feel like we have to like keep our eyes on the prize that
Yeah,
of the future and keep holding them accountable to doing better each time.
I agree.
um yeah.
I think it is a lot more in my, I don't know if Twitch just went kaput or my internet went kaput, but it's back now. It's fine. But yeah, yeah, I agree. Like every little bit of good is a little bit better. And I went to there's this conference in the UK for any like Americans watching called Develop that happens every year. And it's basically just a game dev event. But even there was like so many talks and so many people there, like from an accessibility background or like a diversity and inclusion background. And I was like, okay, so we're getting places, because like 5 years ago that wouldn't have existed. So that's really nice that we're getting there. Love that for us. One day.
Definitely.
Uh,
One day.
one day we'll get there. You know, it's 2023. We've got some time to get there. It's fine. But I want to talk about this stream basically is about like disability representation in like media in general.
Yeah.
So like games, books, anything, TV, film. And so I like wanted to start by talking about like the importance of like disability representation. I know like people are probably very well aware of like disability, no, sorry, representation is important, and like, but like I think unless you are disabled, it's very different to understand why that representation is important. Because I feel like we've had some terrible representation throughout like the course of Hollywood and history. So it's really nice to be getting some more, whether that just be like reality or in media. So
Mm.
I love, and like your books are like a great example of that. This is just me talking about Hux and how amazing they are
Surprise,
like all
everyone.
stream.
You've just come to like, it's a sneaky like Hux promotional
This
tour.
is
Like,
actually the hype and hugs up stream. Um so, but your books do like an amazing thing of that. And at your like launch event you talked a lot about it, and like how like I felt the same in that I didn't see that growing up. Like I didn't even know the like have a connective tissue disorder. And I just didn't know I could be disabled until someone told me, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. It is, impeding on my life. That would make sense. But just because I had never seen I'm ambulatory with like mobility aids and stuff like that, so I didn't know I was disabled. I'm just bopping along. And that's why I feel like your books are a great representation of that, because
Thanks.
it's I thought you said it's, but you said thanks. Thanks.
Thanks.
But I think what was
Sorry.
what, obviously you yourself are disabled. What was the thing where you're like, I need to write books about disabled people?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, um, kind of the impetus of all of my publishing life. So, like before this, I used to be a research diver. I used to work in charity communications. I used to be a bookseller. I've done like many strange and different jobs. Um, but in my mid 20s, I basically started to burn out, and I had a huge shutdown, prolonged shutdown. What I now know is like autistic burnout. Um, and I got diagnosed after a lot of fighting. Because the NHS sent me to someone who only diagnosed children, and she decided I couldn't be autistic because I'd been on a plane, which is my favorite anecdote to tell people. um, like child psychologist at age 29, 27, I don't know, something like that. But the point is, when I, in a very autistic fashion, in the where like when I was like trying to understand myself and find out more about autism in particular, I just read a lot, and read a
Mm-hmm.
lot of kid lit because I was a children's bookseller. So I kind of wanted to see what stories there were already in the children's space. And this is, just to date it, is like 2015, 2016, because things have thankfully moved on quite a lot from here. And I found a lot of like stories not by us but about us. So not just like Curious Incident, but there's some other books that like Mockingbird and Rain, the kind of books where the representation of autism is just very shallow. It's very much like, how does this impact me as a person who isn't autistic, who's in the
Yeah.
same room as you, very much like the behaviorism
Mm-hmm.
of it all. And I just was like, this doesn't make me think of any autistic people I know, because like all the autistic people I know are really creative and passionate and interesting and full of big feelings and wanting to talk about stuff and excited. And I was like, this just doesn't feel like me or anyone that I know. Um, and I've been disabled since birth, and I've kind of knew there were multiple things wrong with me, but not necessarily what they were, since childhood. And because of that, I kind of had a disabled childhood where I was treated as a disabled child,
Mm.
but we didn't really know. And so it meant that like I had this upbringing and childhood that felt different from my peers, but I had no way of explaining it. And that
Yeah.
was, the Ehlers-Danlos, autism, and then seizures when I hit my teens. And I just couldn't stop thinking about like the types of stories I kept seeing over and over again
Mm-hmm.
at that point. And so I was like, no, I want to write some stories where we're the protagonists, where we're the heroes. And
We're
so
the cool ones.
yeah, so like Vivi Conway, she's an autistic girl dealing with like the after effects of being bullied. And so it's like, how do you learn to trust people again? Because that's a story I really needed when I was like 11,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't exist because like the only stories we had were that we didn't want any friends. And I was like, well, actually I would like some who didn't also bully me.
Yeah.
Like, how could we find a middle ground?
Yeah.
um and then like I also, my adult romance is also, she's also autistic, this one in the middle, my
Mm.
my have, although she wasn't supposed to be autistic to start with, and she never says on the page I'm autistic, because
Mm.
she won't find out until after the end of this book. But I'm writing the sequel at the moment, and she knows by the time of the sequel. So it means I get to make a few like autism jokes, like of her being like, I'm newly diagnosed. You can't be mean at me. I'm autistic. um, but yeah, so like just like wanting to have different narratives. And luckily in that time, since I like taught myself to write and started writing and then got into publishing, we've had the wonderful Al McNichol, who's also published by Knights of, who are my children's
Mhm.
publisher. If you guys haven't seen A Kind of Spark on BBC, it's
I
on
keep meaning to
iPlayer.
watch it.
Oh my god, it is so good. We watched it in like 2 days. It's like 10 episodes. It's told in two timelines. The main timeline is about a girl called Addie who is autistic, and she finds out about the witch trials in Scotland. And it when Elle wrote it, she'd looked up the witch trials, and a lot of the descriptions of the women were very autistic. They were like wanted to be with animals more than people and didn't like people that much, and maybe wanted to do their own thing, or maybe was really rude, and or didn't understand what they'd done wrong, or
Mhm.
naivety, and so that's now a TV show, and it's amazing, and there's like multiple autistic people as characters, but also like majority neurodivergent cast and crew. I think like it's never been done before. It's like needs support just
Yeah.
because of like the amount of change in one show.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so that's kind of where like that came from. Sorry, I feel like that was very much a like Lizzie Huxley Jones
No,
pitch with
I
all
love
the
it.
context of me.
Plug
Um,
yourself.
but it was, yeah, like you said, like we didn't really have many disabled characters in books as
Mhm.
when we were kids. Like the only one that springs to mind really is The Secret Garden, a book that I fucking hated, and where one of the characters is in a wheelchair. And then I can't
Oh,
think of,
yes, I remember that.
yeah, and then I can't think of anything else from like the 90s. And there probably was some really horrible stuff, but yeah, I think it's sad that there wasn't some, and that's changing. As a
Mhm.
person with seizures, there's still like a huge gap in seizure representation in everything,
Mhm.
which I'm hoping to change a little bit. Um, but yeah, um, that's kind of what got me into like I can't be the only person who changes this because like I shouldn't be. At the end of the day, I'm a white person with one experience
Mhm.
of like multiple disabilities. Um, but I want to be part of like a chorus
Yeah.
of different stories, and that's hopefully what I'm achieving. We'll
I
see.
I think you're doing great. Uh,
Thanks.
Jeffy said,
I'm so tired.
"Oh, there is a show called Blind Spot. I haven't heard of that."
Oh yeah.
Wait, let me write it down because some of my memory is terrible, so I'm gonna write it down so
Oh
I don't forget it.
yeah. I'm
There we
gonna
go.
look that up. Thanks for
Um,
telling us about that.
yeah, I think like for me, like obviously I'm not a like I am creative, but I'm not a creative for work. Um,
Yeah,
so I
you
think
are.
like
What are you on about?
what?
You're
Like I don't
you
write
create
books or make
videos.
like TV. Yeah, but I'm not
No.
like I guess I'm not like creating fictionalized work, I guess is like what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
but you would
So
call a non-fiction author an author. Like you'd still say they're a
yeah,
creative. You're
I
a
guess
creative.
thanks.
You do art for like part of your job. Like you're a creative.
I
Anyway,
think
sorry,
yeah.
carry on. I'm just like, don't be mean about yourself.
No, but like
I
I
need to
think
gas you.
like that's I think for me like I am trying to create a different kind of representation because like it's not fictional, like it is me. um and it has been really nice, I think, throughout these streams. Like I mentioned earlier, we did a stream on Elgato's channel on Wednesday. And it was just so like that was like a really big audience, a bigger audience than I've ever had on a stream ever, so terrifying. But like there were so many people in chat who were just like, "Oh my god, like I didn't even know Disability Pride Month exist. Oh my god, other chronically ill people." And it is that thing of like it's just nice to just see other people like you. Like it's nice
Yeah.
having a little community and stuff.
Can
And
I
I think
tell you
like
something? Oh, sorry.
no,
I
you
was just
go.
gonna say, can I tell you something really heartwarming? So,
Yeah.
one of the things about being a kidlit author is that you go and do a lot of school events. Like,
Mhm.
you don't just write books; you become a quasi teacher
Yeah.
as part of it. And like one of the best things that I've been doing when I go do my school events is that I tell them I'm autistic and disabled, like right at the
Mhm.
beginning. In fact, I've got my I had to print out and laminate my slides because I'm going to like a bookshop and I was like, look, here's the books I wrote, guys, buy
Oh.
them. But I have these, I can show you them actually. I think you might like them. I have these 2 slides where I'll be like, hey, so I just told you all about,
Mhm.
I'll mention autism, seizures, and disability as I start talking. And then I like explain it. And then I'm like, does anyone know what autism is? And the
Mhm.
kid who always puts the hand up first is always like, and I should know because I'm autistic, which always makes me so happy.
Yeah.
And all the teachers have told me that whenever I do that, it changes who is responding in the classroom. Like the
Mhm.
kids who interact with me are usually the kids who are too quiet to like,
Yeah.
or like too scared to like take part because
Yeah.
I've like changed the playing field by being like, no, no, I'm the same as you.
Mhm.
Whenever they're like, I should know because I'm autistic, I get to be like, all the best people are. And like the smiles they do,
Oh, that's so cute. I
it
love
like
it.
powers me.
Oh, I
It just
love that.
powers me forever.
That's so
Um
cute.
so yeah, like in the same way you're talking about representation as self,
Mhm.
as being like I'm a person doing this job and I'm out here is how I manage it. I'm disabled. I also do that within my author
Yeah.
work, trying to do that directly with kids because so often they don't get to meet disabled adults who maybe
Who
wouldn't
get
disclose
yeah.
them. Um, so yeah, that's what I always try and do when I'm doing like author hugs.
Yeah, I think it is like oh also, Danny, thank you. Happy Disability Pride Month, friend.
Yeah,
Um
thanks, Jenny.
it is, yeah, like I think for me, like in terms of like my Ehlers Danlos, um, I was like a kid who very much like I like showed signs of it from a young age, which didn't make sense until I got diagnosed, and I was like, "Oh yes, my childhood makes so much sense now. Thank you."
Yeah,
And if I'd have had that representation and even known what EDS was, obviously it's different because like research and all that has like come on since I was a kid, so
yeah,
who's to say if there was representation it would have made any difference. But in general, like if I'd have seen someone and I was like, oh, I also experienced that, I could have that thing, that probably would
yeah,
have helped me because I had like my symptoms didn't really get bad enough to worry about until I was like 17. And so
yeah,
like for me, like I was like, oh, this has come on really suddenly. It hadn't. I just I
yeah,
hadn't connected the dots. And so like I got an ME and a fibromyalgia diagnosis. And all the way through this diagnosis, they were like, because usually stuff like that is caused by like a glandular fever or some other virus that then leads on to that. And everyone would always be like, oh, were you sick? Like all the doctors would be like, oh, you must have been sick before. And I was like, I was not. I was fine.
yeah,
And then just one day I was not, but I was never ill. And they were like, oh, you must have been and not known it. And I'm like, I feel like I would have known if I had glandular fever,
yeah,
but you're the
yeah,
professional, so you would know.
yeah,
And so it would have been like, I think representation is important within the disability community anyway, just so you can be like, oh, that might be what I have. Like a lot of getting diagnosed, at least I find in like the UK and the US, is being like, okay, I think I have this thing. I'm gonna take this to a doctor and be like, please check me for this thing, rather than them doing all the investigative work and hoping for the
yeah,
best. Um,
yeah. And yeah, that's kind of why actually. So the next new character in Vivi 2 that they meet, she's a wheelchair user and she has EDS and she talks about it and I have her use different mobility aids depending
mm,
on where they're going and like they help her do stuff. Like there's a bit at the end where they have to like run down the steps of a lighthouse and she's just like fuck my life, but she can't say that because it's kids book.
yeah.
But it's cool though because she'll be like my second character with EDS I've written because the love
Mm,
interest in the romance has EDS. I kind of want to be like, yeah, I feel like you were saying, like finding out you have stuff can be so much like working it out. And also, I feel like lots of people have found out they're autistic or have EDS because I tell them they probably do.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, "You can't stand
Hugs
straight. Did
is
you know
my
you're
doctor.
hypermobile?" I literally, I keep saying I'm like Typhoid Mary of autism in my in publishing, especially. Like people keep finding out. Um, yeah, Jeffy's just said they didn't know until they were 25
Mhm.
either. I feel like that's such a common age, like late teens into like early 20s. It's because like so much change is happening, like more
Mhm.
stress, like you might be working. I feel like it's such a prime time that a lot of disability stuff becomes apparent because you've gone from a very normal like school system where you might have
Mhm.
been coping and you might have been physically and mentally coping because you've probably been in the same school building as well for like years and years, so you kind of know how to energy budget.
Mhm.
And then as soon as that starts changing, you start having to go into the world and travel across London
Mm.
5 days a week. And then it's like things become so much more apparent. Funnily enough, for me, like we have kind of always known that there is something wrong with all our joints in my family,
Mm.
but having not quite understood science, my mum was like, "Oh, it's because your grandma had polio, and that's why we all have weird joints." And then I was like, "I don't think that's right." But then me and my mum and my auntie would be standing in the kitchen, like popping our hips out,
Oh,
like to the
yeah.
music, as you do.
As you
Don't do
do.
that. If you have
Casual.
EDS, don't do that. It makes things worse. Um, and then I always joke because my sister's PhD was in collagen disorders, so she's
Oh,
actually why.
perfect.
So she's actually why I know quite a lot about the science of collagen and like the
Mhm.
extracellular matrix. But also, I was like, did you not notice that all of us have
When
it?
you were doing all that research?
Yeah, we're all like noodles.
That's the thing, like, in terms of like when I was like, oh, there were definitely signs when I was a kid. It's like I would do stuff like that where I remember I don't even remember how old I was. I must have been like 12 or something. Like every now and then I'd be like walking around the shops with my mom and I'd be like, oh, I just need to like pop my hip back in. And like we just like it wasn't I hadn't injured it, nothing, but I just had like a time in my life where I would just have to go like lean against a wall for a little bit and like
Yeah,
push my hip against it. And like we just never made this like and things like that would happen throughout my childhood, but at no point did we ever go like, oh, this is like maybe this is all like connected and stuff.
yeah.
We just never
Bruno,
put it
my
together.
boy. I
Oh
just saw
yeah.
his little ears.
Stream
Oh,
stream can't see him, but my little pup's here. He's just laying down. I got like a cozy blanket out for him. So bless
yeah,
his soul. But
we're gonna
yeah, so
make that.
it is that thing of like if I had the representation, maybe I would have
Yeah,
realized sooner. Or like same with like I got my like autism diagnosis this year and there's like a big uproar, I think, with the boomers at the moment of like everybody's saying they're autistic gonna have ADHD now, like you're ruining the kids, and it's like, well, yeah, because we have access to technology that we never had access to before, where we can just go on TikTok and people can be that like autistic representation of like, hey,
yeah,
autism doesn't just look like this way or that way, like it could look like this, or you could have these traits or anything like that. And and so people went, oh, that's why I do those things, and that's why I've been like that as a kid and stuff like that. And so again, like we talked about like the fictional representation, then also like in-person representation,
mm,
and that's sort of what like people on TikTok can be, or like content creators can be, where
yeah,
they are the representation as themselves, which is really nice.
yeah. And
So I
also,
love that.
I think part of the reason why that's so powerful is that people generally think they know a lot more than they do about, especially autism,
Mm-hmm.
but disability in general. Like, usually, my first thing when people ask me, like, things to know and like how to help people is like first like accept that you know almost nothing,
Mm-hmm.
because like partly is because of representation and partly because like the way being visible and disabled in public is made harder by like lack of accessibility
Mm-hmm.
and like lack of normalization, like um And things like with autism and ADHD particularly, I don't know if you know this, but I think until maybe it was 2012, 2013, they didn't diagnose both. They were like, you can only be one or the
One or the
other,
other.
which is mad because so many of us are both. Like
Mhm.
being ADHD is really common. And actually with autism, there's so many comorbids that like I think historically neurodivergent people have been like just been boxed off as, oh, they're the weird malingerer people, and now it's like, no, no, we're actually people who've got something on. Like 1 and 2 neurodivergent
Mhm.
people are hypermobile, and that exists on a spectrum where like me and Molly are on like halfway towards one end, and there's people who have it much more severe than us, and then there's people who are just like hypermobile but maybe not
Like, it's not, like, causing
Symptomat
pain. Yeah.
symptomatically, yeah, yeah, exactly. So, like, basically every dancer and ballerina
Mhm.
and sports people, because like, it's useful in, like, when you're strong and in smaller extents, but then that also can be why when people give it up, they can have so many more injuries and stuff.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, I just find it so interesting when people talk about, "Oh, there's so many more now," because it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's misunderstanding the way that diagnostics works and
Yeah.
also medicine
Well, I
and
think
society.
because
Like,
like, people do like, I love learning how, like, I don't know how to put it. It's not like the right or in this case or anything, but just like people that I think don't understand disability are like, oh, you got so many labels and like there's so much wrong with you. But it's like usually they are like comorbidities. Like
yeah,
EDS and autism have such an overlap that like if you have EDS, you might also have autism and like vice versa. So it's not like this thing of like it's not like a rare thing for that to happen and for you to have
no,
like loads of illnesses together. Like it's actually quite likely just because of
yeah.
how it works out.
It might be rare in the general population, but it's common in
Yeah.
our population.
Mhm.
And I think that that's something that people aren't very good at understanding, that like, 30% of autistic people have epilepsy. And like that's a huge crossover. That's
Mhm.
another huge crossover. They're starting to realize that loads of people with Ehlers-Danlos have endometriosis. So it's
Mhm.
like more and more crossovers because it's probably at the bottom of it. Um, collagen is such an important protein, and that
Mhm.
is gone wrong in Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Collagen is what keeps all your cells, like my sister describes it as like if you imagine a fishing net as that's your extracellular matrix and your little cells are going along the little line. And if you've got a collagen disorder, it's just a fucking mess. Like
Mhm.
it's not catching anything, nothing is happy in there. And because that's in every single tissue, it can cause all sorts of problems. So, and it changes our brain structure as well. They have started seeing new papers that we have a different sensory processing area, which is really common in autism as well. So
Mhm.
it's like all this stuff. I love
Yeah.
science. Can you
I
tell
love
that
hearing you
I
talk
had
about
a science
science.
background? It's like
uh,
I would be reading my little fish papers, and then I'll be like, and now let's look up some neurology for fun because it's midnight.
I want to
Yes.
just Duke of Many Things said that they're an autistic dungeon master. Is that DM as in
Just
like dungeon master? I'm assuming for D&D for a table of autistic players, and I love that. Um, and Jeff said, I've been realizing recently that I'm pretty sure I have autism as well as EDS and ADHD, which yeah, like would make sense I think for a lot of people because of the overlap. Like it is odd that like it isn't talked and that's why disability representation is important because this stuff doesn't get talked about and people could know themselves and their health so
yeah.
much better if this stuff was more talked about. Wouldn't that be great? I would love that because that's the thing. Like, I didn't know I was autistic until I was an adult because, like, the representations. I talked about this in the first stream we did. Um, and it was like the only representation I'd seen of autism was like young or teenage boys who were all
Mhm.
white and in like film or TV who were always played by like non-autistic actors. And so I was just like, oh, that's autism. And that's not me. So that can't possibly be me. And like if it had been a more accurate representation, then maybe I could have like twigged a little earlier why I'm so bad with social skills. That would have been really good and made my life less stressful.
Have you seen Heartbreak High on Netflix
I keep
yet?
meaning to
With
watch it, but I
Quinny? Oh,
haven't.
I've only watched like 3 episodes, but I basically like, and I like it. Although they're like 1 hour long episodes, I always
Mm,
feel like when I'm watching it, I'm always like, oh, this should have been. I would love it if this was a half an hour TV show, but it's
yeah.
like really good. But yeah, Quinny, who's the autistic character, who is played by
Oh,
I've
Chloe.
forgotten her name. Chloe Hayden, thank
Yeah.
you. Um, and she's so good, and like you can really tell that she's an autistic actor informed character in the same way
Mhm.
with the kind of spark. Like I love Quinny's like excitedness, and like
Mhm.
one of the things that really hit me like quite emotionally was she got excited about something and she jumped and like went,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my god, like that, if I'd seen that when I was like 14, because my friends would always be like, oh, they were so cute about it. They would always be like, I really like it when you're happy because it's like you jump around and it's
Yeah.
like you're so happy. Um and it's like that, like that sort of thing is like the antithesis of
Mhm.
like I kind of loved Atypical even though it was not great,
Yeah.
mostly because the queer storyline was so good.
Yes,
And
agree.
also I feel like I never can be sure about this, but I really feel like there was a writing intention to set up his girlfriend and his mum as being autistic, and I feel like they didn't have enough
Yes.
time to do it because everything about Paige and his mum
Mhm.
scream autism, and I really thought that's what the fourth season was going to be about, and be about them being like,
Mhm.
it
Like
takes this much
realizing,
longer for,
yeah.
yeah, for people who aren't boys to find out.
Mhm.
But they didn't do that, which was sad, but like you never know. But it felt intentional, and like I don't think it's me mistakenly reading into that because again, everything about Paige is so
I felt that when I was watching it. I was like, I don't know. And I didn't know if that was like you say you think it was intentional. I don't know if it was. I don't know if they were just trying to have like a neurotypical girlfriend that like like what kind of neurotypical would date an autistic boy,
yeah.
and I don't know if they like went down that line and so didn't even
Yeah,
consider
that's
that she could be
possible.
autistic.
I
But
think that
like
would could definitely have been true of the first season. I feel like they didn't necessarily know what they were doing with
mhm.
some of the characterization, or like it didn't come across that at the end. I think it's like sometimes as a viewer and also a writer, I get a little bit like, but what are they doing? Like,
Yeah.
have do they know what they're doing? But I mean, I read books all the time where I get to the end and I go, wow, they didn't know that they were writing about autism, but they've
Mhm.
written about autism. Um, and that happens quite commonly, and part of that is because like we said, like
People
it's
don't
just not
know.
really understood, and like
Yeah.
people think they know but don't necessarily know, but
Yeah. Like I think
yeah.
sorry, I didn't you go. Don't let me
No, no,
interrupt.
you go. I'm done. I trailed off.
I was going to say like it is almost like there's the big discussion the last couple of years around like the manic pixie dream girl being like an autism representation. I don't
Yes.
completely buy into it for every manic
Mm,
pixie dream girl, but a lot of them I'm like, oh yes, that would make sense. And also just as a like an autistic like person born female that I have experienced men trying to manic pixie dream girl me, and I'm like,
yeah.
oh, it would make sense. Yes, that
Yes.
that does
And then they
track.
get really mad when it turns out that you have autism and needs, and they're like,
Yeah,
no, you were supposed to solve me. Oh my god,
yeah.
that the the problem with the manic pixie dream girl explains basically all my relationships until I was like with Tim, who I've been with for 10 years.
Mm,
But like I think that's such a common experience for many autistic people who date men in particular, well, date cis men, I think, really in particular. I think some of them definitely were unintentionally. I think a lot about, I haven't seen it in a many, many, many years. Natalie Portman playing the girl with epilepsy in like Zach Braff's first film. There's a bit where she's like, sometimes I just like to go like woo, 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 woo. And I'm like, yeah, like an autistic
Yeah.
person might just stim.
I was gonna
Sure. It's so funny
say.
when you watch it and you're like, does does he know what he's
Yeah.
doing?
It is, I think it
Yeah.
is also once you get diagnosed, you then start like like you say, like the unintentional writing of it. You start picking up on it where you're like, well, they could definitely be autistic. That definitely tracks for sure in in this case. Um,
Yeah. And I
and it
think a lot about the fact that like so many writers are like a little tismy. Like I know a lot of autistic writers, and so I'm like, I wonder if this has happened because someone in that writer's room was like, I'm autistic, I'm gonna do something, and no one
no
will
one's gonna
notice.
notice.
Because like I've done it myself, like but like not quite to the same extent. In my romance, there is a very strange sentence, and it is a reference to a terrible Christmas movie on Netflix. And
Oh,
it got
love it.
my editor, my copy editors, my proofreaders, and I did that because someone bet me a bottle of champagne. I couldn't get it in, and so like, I feel like writers are so often trying to like sneak things in, not always just like memes, but like
Mm,
different types of representation. Um, just to kind of like, you don't know what you're gonna get pushed back on. So sometimes it's like, I'm just gonna hint or do a little sneaky sneak. So um yeah, it's tricky. But now I just tell them what I'm doing because I have editors who are like, know that I'm a chaos demon who's gonna sneak in things.
yeah. I was
Um
I was trying to find because you talked about like a lot of writers being like neurodivergent, and we've talked like a lot about like how gaming is similar in the there's probably like
yeah.
a lot of people and there's like this body organization called Yuki, and every year they do a census of the games industry,
Mm.
and I just got the last one up and it was like I'm trying to do the math now 10 14 so there's about 16% of the games industry is what is it 30% people it was like it turned out that like the neurodiversity within the games industry is like so much higher than like the
Yeah, no.
normal working
I bet.
population. I just found that so interesting because, like, yeah, of course, like we just sit inside playing video games, not interacting with people face to face, and like just don't want to talk to anyone and sit in a dark room and just stare at the little bright, colorful lights all day. Like, of course, like that would make so much sense.
And also in terms of community, like autistic people in particular, like we like to make friends via things that we like.
Mm-hmm.
So like anything that has like fandom, I feel like gaming is
Yeah.
perfect for this. And then you start to think, well, maybe I could work in that. Books are the same, like, and books is a very autistic pursuit because it's like, yeah, I'm gonna sit on my own for 4 months and work on this one book
Mm-hmm.
of people that I've made up in my head, and then it will be done and like heavily researched,
And
and
that
like
was
I
really
love
fun.
yeah, and like I love doing it. And I think that being autistic, I benefit from the fact that I work on my own like almost all the time.
Yes.
Like I'm very extrovert. I go out to like book events and I do my schools workshops and stuff, but like the solo nature of it really works for me. And so I think that's why you get a lot of autistic writers, less autistic people, I think, in like the corporate side of
Mm-hmm.
publishing because it's so corporate
Yeah.
and really extremely like English middle class, like that polite social hierarchy
Yes.
shit is publishing. Like I would not do well in mainstream publishing.
Yeah.
Um, but and I think that like games and tech can be kind of similar, and because so often the people like throughout all levels in games and
Mm-hmm.
tech are neurodivergent, whether they know it or not, and often they find out when they have kids that they were as well, that they can like make companies and setups that can be ND friendly as well.
Yes.
So yeah, it's really interesting to see how many people behind the scenes are neurodivergent, and yet maybe that doesn't necessarily come through into games. I was trying to think if there's any, for in like prep for us coming to talk
Yeah.
on the train home, I was like
Are there any
trying to think.
games
Yeah,
with
I was trying to think of.
like neurodivergence characters?
Yeah, yeah,
I think there's got to be one. I feel like it would be like in like Life is Strange or something like
yeah. That's
that. I
what I
feel like
feel.
maybe.
Maybe the second season with the kids, because
Yeah,
there's two brothers.
but I feel like
Maybe.
it's very few and far between, or I think it's like
Yeah,
you said earlier where it's like accidentally written in but not
yeah,
intentionally being like we want to include an autistic character or a character with ADHD or anything like that. I think it is just like very much by accident. But also in terms of like physical disability, games aren't great for that either.
no,
Um,
no.
one, one thing I'll never forget is I once I think I replied to like a friend's tweet or something about representational disability representation or something like that, and I was like, yeah, I would love to get more disabled characters in games. And some man replied being like, you could not drop someone in a wheelchair into the middle of a war zone. And I was like, why? Why? I mean, your thought of disability is that they have to be in a wheelchair for starters, but B, why do they have to be in a war zone? Where did that come from? No one
That's the
mentioned
only type of
anything.
game, Molly. The
Yes,
only games that
that's
exist are
all there
war
is.
zones.
It was just so
Yeah,
random. I was like, okay, I don't know where that came from, but that's cool,
yeah.
I guess. Thanks.
I think
Um,
the last like disability representation in a game that I played was that one that I messaged you guys, the group chat about, and I was like, I just played this game about dementia and now I can't stop crying. And it was really sad and maybe a bit much for me personally.
hmm,
But I feel like that was like a time where I was like, oh, this changes the character, but also the gameplay. So like I'm
mm-hmm,
glad I played it from a like craft point of view. Um, but yeah, like I'm trying to remember. So I think I can talk about this, but I used to work on the Love Island mobile game, and have credits for season 2 and 3, and should have a credit for season 4. But if you have read the news about that company, you'll know that things went a bit wrong late in that season. There suddenly wasn't a writing team.
oh,
But I feel like I know we tried to do, we were talking about neurodivergence at one point with characters, but I can't remember if that got through. There's definitely a character who like
mm-hmm.
screams ADHD that I was like, I don't know if we meant this to happen,
But it's happened
but
now.
it has, and he's perfect. Um, but it's like, yeah, it's that kind of thing where even when you think about it, it's like really, really racking your brains to
Mm-hmm.
try and think of anyone.
I think
Um,
they're definitely like to be fair to that guy, Phil said he remembers that tweet. To be fair to that guy, the only disabled representation I think I've ever seen in games is people in wheelchairs. Like that is
yeah,
it. Like when the characters I think of like Ellie in Borderlands, like Barbara
yeah,
Gordon in Batman, and then like even like little things like in Overcooked, there's like characters in
yeah.
wheelchairs
The
and stuff
little
like
tiny
that.
wheelchair. I
So
love that.
to be fair to him, if the only representation he's ever seen of disability is a little raccoon in a wheelchair or
Yeah,
like Barbara Gordon in a wheelchair, I understand why that might be all you think of it as.
yeah. And that
Um,
kitchen is kind of a war zone. It has
it,
war zone vibes.
yeah, basically the same.
Yeah, it's
And
just all a war zone.
the same amount of anger in COD as there is in Overcooked, so you know. Um, so like I
Definitely.
get it because like I literally cannot think of any other like forms of like disability representation other than that. And so like again, this is what going back to the stream title, this is why disability representation is important because then maybe we would understand it more.
Yeah,
I mean there's still the preconception that like if you were in a wheelchair, you must be paralyzed in some way. Like there's like ambulatory wheelchair users are so not, I think, known in the public sphere
Yeah.
that, and that's just because there's been no representation. There's been no one talking about it. So like,
Yeah.
why would people know? I mean,
And also because like I think people have been so conditioned in like looking for people faking it
mm-hmm,
that if they when they see people who use a wheelchair get up from it and stand up, they're like, oh my god, they were faking it.
mm-hmm,
It's like I have a wheelchair that I don't use that much, partly because I got it for like a backup. Like I prefer to use my mobility scooter when I'm out about because I can drive it and
mm-hmm,
like it is a bit more all terrain than my wheelchair. Um, but like, yeah, I was really conscious when I was in it of like, if I stand up, there might be someone who like gives me a look, but
yes.
my plan was that I would be like, "Oh, I'm cured." Like if anyone was weird about it, I'd be like, "Whoa,
Oh my
finally!"
god, I made
They
it.
they said it would happen one day. So like I'm not too like I feel like I just have to be ballsy enough that when I do it. But like, yeah, I think it's like people have a very binary view of
Mm-hmm,
disability. And I think that's one thing, like I would love for there to be more representation of disability in games and films and books and
mm-hmm,
stuff. But I think one of the things that can get lost in that is the dynamic nature of disability. And like that's something that I'm always thinking about with my characters is like trying to show that good days and bad days exist and good days and bad days for like you personally, but also
mm-hmm,
you, your body, you, your brain, and how that changes things. And I've been thinking about that a lot for this second book, which will be out in May, the next Vivi Conway, um, with Meredith, like using her, like that's her name at the moment. It probably will stay as Meredith. Um, Using her crutches or her walking stick or her wheelchair, and like how that interacts with her as part of a gang of magical fighting children.
mm-hmm.
So there we go. I actually did put someone in a wheelchair in a war zone. So let's find that
You should
tweet.
find that tweet and just reply with like a
I'll
link to
send
buy
them the
your
link
book.
to buy the book next year. Like because of you, I did it. Yeah. um,
Oh,
but yeah, it's like, oh yeah,
Brian said
yeah,
there's a table person in COD. Oh, who? Because I didn't know this. I did not know that at all.
yeah.
Also, oh,
And
Stacy said blessed chorizo, which is a little
yeah,
dog in a wheelchair in Far Cry, which is
I
like
love treats.
I love chorizo.
So
Sorry, I interrupted just to read that out because I was so intrigued.
no, don't worry. I have immediately forgotten what I was talking about. Partly because I'm like I have 5,000 words of book two to write,
Mm-hmm.
and like the wanky bit of being a writer is with autism is that I'm just like hyper fixated on like finishing, and
Mm-hmm.
cannot I don't have the time, but also it just means that like my characters are just like walking around in my head having
Yeah.
conversations like acting out the scenes. And so like my ability to like hold a conversation is so reduced at the moment because as soon as it drops there's just like all these little 12-year-old children discussing battle tactics.
I love
I'm
it.
just like why do I have this in my own brain?
They're just enjoying
um
themselves.
oh yeah, Brian said someone has a prosthetic leg.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense though
Yeah.
for like a war game. Um yeah, I kind of want to see more. In I feel like I played a dating sim that had disability rep recently. I'm not thinking of Katawa Shouju, which when that came out I was like, wow. That was a dating sim where all the girls were disabled.
I haven't even
Like
heard of this.
oh, this was like 12, 13 years ago, and I only
Oh,
knew about it
I
because
was a
Lee
baby.
Alexander was writing about it. Yeah, of course you were. I'm like, I was about to be like, yeah, so I was in university, and you're like, yeah, I
I,
was a baby.
I
I'm
was in
like,
school still.
I think, but like that, there were some problems with that game,
Mm-hmm.
but it was kind of like interesting that there were like, I think six. disabled girls, like the 6 girls you could
I
go out with
love
were all
that.
disabled. And the conversations about dating them talked about that. I feel like it probably has not aged well, and I would love to go back and just like re-examine it now as someone who has worked in dating sims and
Mm,
like thought about that. And I just thought the only other person I can think of is maybe Thane from Mass Effect 2. He has a terminal illness. Um, but I think maybe he's the only disabled Mass Effect character. That
mm,
can't be right. There must be someone else. I feel like there should be someone in Dragon Age as well, but like my mind is
yeah.
just blank.
One that like fairly recently was Sun Spider in the new Spider-Man movie,
Yeah,
which I didn't even know she existed until the movie came out and people started talking about it. And I was like, oh, what? Like my mind was literally blown. I was like
yeah.
tweeting, "Oh, thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate it. Sorry, I
Oh,
had my
hello,
notifications turned off while we're chatting. But welcome in. Welcome in,
hello,
Ophelia.
Raid.
Hello. Welcome to Disability Pride Month celebration with Molly and Hux today. Hey Harry, hey Runeeble. Am I saying that right, by the way? Runeeble? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Also, Otto the Potato. That is an adorable name. Thank
Cute.
you for the raid. But yeah, I was like, as soon as I found out Sun Spider existed, I was like tweeting about the comics, and I was like, oh my god, did everybody know this existed? And then like one of the writers
Yeah,
replied, and I was
T.
like, ah, the
Yeah.
dream, the
Yeah, so
dream.
T. Franklin created Sunspider for the comics,
Mm-hmm.
and then they put Sunspider into the film. I think that's the right order that it happened. But T. Franklin writes loads of comics. She's done a really good Harley Quinn and the plant lady,
Oh,
Poison
Poison
Ivy.
Ivy.
A really good like comic run of them, like that
Mm-hmm.
spins off from the cartoon, I think. But I've never seen that cartoon, and I really like that comic series. It's very funny.
I love the
Um,
cartoon series.
yeah,
Um,
but T. Franklin does amazing like
but
comics and disability rap and stuff.
the worst
What were you
part
gonna say? Sorry?
was that I like wanted. I specifically want. Well, I wanted to see the movie anyway because I like the first one. But I wanted to see this movie because I found out that she was in it, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna see some EDS representation. Let's go!" And then like I didn't see her in the entire film, and I was like, "Oh, she must be in the background." It wasn't until I got home and I like was talking about it with my boyfriend, and he was like, "Yeah, when like all this spoiler alert, there's a lot of Spider Men and women and stuff in it." So sorry if that was a shock. Um, but there he was like, "Yeah, when all the spiders show up and stuff like that," and I was like, "No," and he was like, "Yeah, she was there," and I was like, well, I went to the toilet at this part because I thought
No.
nothing was going to happen. And he's like, that's literally when she showed up. And I was like, no. I literally went to the toilet because I was
Oh.
like, oh, everything's done. Like, I'll come back. Nothing's going to have happened. And then, like, the one part of this movie that I wanted to see, I missed my representation and I didn't even get to
Oh.
see it. Very upsetting.
I mean, that's kind of telling in itself, though. Like, if you can go for a go piss girl and miss the entire disability
Yes, that's very
representation.
sad, actually. I literally went to pee and I literally ran back to my seat and I missed it. So,
Yeah,
not exactly the
it's like,
long-term representation you hope to get.
and and that's so often what we're more used to. Like, so I just saw the Barbie movie today. I
Mm.
did threaten that I was going to talk about the Barbie movie, and I was really interested in like um how they've handled diversity because Barbie is a very diverse toy line now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there is a wheelchair using Barbie, but if I recall, she has no lines. She does dance. That was really fun. Like they have a big dance routine right in the beginning,
Mm.
and she's dancing in that. I liked that. But I don't think she says anything
Mm.
ever. And I was thinking like when I was a kid, I tweeted about her the other day, school Becky, the school photographer, and she was one of Barbie's friends. This is going to age me now. I think it was 1996, 1997, something like that. And so there was a line of like Barbie and her friends, and it was they kind of had like cluelessy outfits, but I don't mean like the plaid, I mean like the
Mm.
dungarees and like the big
Oh,
hat,
yeah.
like the big beanies. And then Becky had a camera and she was a wheelchair user and she wore plaid and like jeans and like red Converse. And that, because I was a tiny gay, that's probably why I remember her. But also, she was a character who used a wheelchair and had something else going on. So I was
Mhm.
like, oh, it would be really cool if they like incorporate her. And she's like, I'm photographer Barbie. You know, they could like kind of change it because now like the newer ones that the line the diverse line is called like fashionistas Barbie, I think.
Mm.
And so they have like a fashionable outfit that actually often looks like dog shit. But the dolls are cool. The dolls are really good.
Oh, good.
But like in the movie, they're like, I'm President Barbie, I'm Dr. Barbie, and like Margot Robbie is like, I'm stereotypical Barbie, like that's
Mhm.
her thing. And so I think they couldn't have done it without being like, we've had to make up a Barbie for this, which is also kind of, you know, like maybe you could have a wheelchair using Barbie who
Mhm.
has a job. And so I kind of think about that quite a lot in the way that disability representation can still be like a background character. Like it can still be, I think we can be used very much as a kind of tokenism cookie for having someone physically disabled
Mhm.
in the picture. But if your narrative doesn't include a disabled character and isn't maybe influenced by how disabled characters, in the same way that all narratives are influenced by the characters that we put into it, right? Like every different experience that a character has changes how they react to something. If
Mhm.
you have disabled characters, they're like physical experiences and personal and emotional and you know what they can do and can't do also changes the narrative. And I
Mhm.
think that it's a huge cop out if you just have like they're in the background anyway.
They're
here's
there,
all
I
the able
promise.
here's all the able-bodied Barbies having an adventure. And so like I still really love that movie. It's very funny, it's very irreverent. Like if you like Greta Gerwig, you will be very happy. Um and like I have seen some people be like critiquing the feminism of it, but it's like the whole agenda of Barbie is like liberal representation politics. And so
Mhm.
it's like, I mean, that's not the feminism I personally go for, so I'm not going to care about that. I'm just going to enjoy the very, very
Uh-huh.
silly jokes, which I recommend doing. Um, but yeah, it just like makes me think about the current state of disability representation
Mhm.
is still often not the main character. And
Yes.
like if we get a spoken character who has like a role like Quinny in Heartbreak High, that is still leaps beyond most of what we have,
Mhm.
which is still kind of wild. Is the raid still here? I don't understand Twitch. Okay, right. Every time I've been in the comments, every stream, people will be like, "We're raiding," and then I'll like post an emoji like, I don't know what this is."
What wait, what were you gonna what did that have to do? Were you just gonna like say hello or like what did that have to do? Just,
I
just
didn't know
like
what I was supposed to do. I was like, I
oh,
don't want to be left out.
oh. Well, you
I
could
don't know
just
what to
say
do.
welcome in, Raiders. Thanks for coming
Oh,
in.
thanks for coming. If you're still here, I probably missed them now. Who
Well,
else
if
have
you
we
are
got?
still here, we thank you very much. Um, Also, I do want to go to a break because I need to pee so badly. But I
You're
do
gonna
want to
miss
come
some
back.
spider.
Yeah, I do want to come back to what Tresney and Holly said afterwards because I wanted to make a
Yes.
point about it, but I need to pee so badly. I'm so sorry. We are back. Now I need to remember what things I wanted to say about what Tresney and Holly said. Um, oh yeah, Josh from Watch Dogs 2. Yes, that is a good point. I forgot about him. In Watch Dogs game, like basically partway through, they were like, "Hello, this computer nerd who doesn't really talk to people because he just wants to hack stuff all day, is autistic." And it's like, well, yeah, obviously, but it was just
No
like,
fucking shit.
yeah. But I think it's nice. Like they didn't make a big, from what I remember anyway, they didn't make a big deal of it. He just like it was just revealed, and it was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. And that was really nice because although like I think it is like a discussion topic of like whether people should like in like films, TV, games, or anything should have to reveal their disabilities or their diagnosis, or should it just be that the audience interprets it? I do think it is quite nice in media to
Yeah.
overtly say it because then people could be like, "Yes, I am in a game. I don't have to guess. I don't have to think about it. I that is me. I am there." And that's really nice. So,
Yeah, especially when there's so often like euphemisms to be like, you know, not not even on the spectrum, but that is one that like you might hear if they're like toying with saying the word autism. But
mhm.
like, so many euphemisms that are often used instead. Um, I think they should touch of the tism. But yeah, it is nice when like people name it, which is kind of why in Make You Mine This Christmas, so that's my queer Christmas rom-com. At the back, I have a note, like a little letter from me to the reader being like, hey, so Hav is autistic. Like, it isn't said on the page
Mhm.
because she doesn't know it yet, but she is written as an autistic dyspraxic person.
Mhm.
Um, purposefully, and like her not knowing is kind of why it's so chaotic and kind of why she makes so many bad decisions, because like when you don't know like your baseline operating system, it's really impossible to like trust your own decision making.
Yeah.
And so I felt it was really important to say that for the same reason. Like I think sometimes you have to say it for it to
Mhm.
not necessarily count, but for it to matter to
Yeah.
someone in a way. But yeah, I agree. That sounds nice that they said it.
Yeah, because it's also like what you said, where like you'll read books and be like, they definitely wrote an autistic character and just never knew it. And so it could be like it's a situation of that where they've, like, I think it happens a lot um, with both like autistic, like AMAB people and AFAB people, where it will just be that they are quite clearly autistic to autistic people, but to like the neurotypical
Yeah,
writers writing them, they're just like, I'm just writing like a quirky little character that has like these really strong interests and like is really awkward in social situations. And it's like, yeah, why do you think why do you think that's happening? Why are we here right now? Why are we doing this? So I think it is again, it is that thing of like if there was better representation, that even like neurotypical people could be like, oh, I'm writing, that's what I'm writing, and maybe I should like
yeah.
consult someone on on this maybe. um
I
so
think sometimes that they write them and then it's like about 5, 10 years later they realize that actually they are autistic
oh
and
yeah.
that's what they've done. I've seen that happen before. And then
Yeah.
they're like, oh, that's what I was doing.
Mhm.
I think Holly also said either that or the entire plot or character is the fact that they're disabled, which
Mhm.
yeah, you like that was so much more common for like the crumbs of rap in the like, I feel like the 2000s and the 2010s.
Mhm.
I mean, you still get it now, but like, yeah. And usually it's like this person who is disabled is a problem for me
Yeah.
specifically.
I do think
It's like,
I think you
yeah,
said something once, and I don't know if it was like a publicity thing you said it, or you just said it like to me, but you said a thing once about how disabled people, or maybe you posted on Instagram, I don't know, you put it somewhere and it was really wise. And you said like how disabled people don't often get to be like objects of desire. And
yeah,
like I see that especially in media of like they'll have like romantic relationships maybe, but like sexual relationships or anything like that, it's like, yes, disability does change your relationship than if you're both able-bodied, but like we're still people just
we still
existing.
want a bone. Yeah, like look, right? So my romance isn't the spiciest of spices. You know what bits are going where, but I don't describe like the fluids. There's only one sex scene in this, although it was very hilariously listed incorrectly as erotica. So I accidentally tricked a load of like straight middle-aged men called like Colin into reading it, which made me really happy because they were all like, I've never read a book like this before, and now I want to read like more. But there is a sex scene between Hav and Kit in this, and Kit has EDS
Mhm.
and Hav is autistic. And in the sex scene, they're talking about that. And the new one that I am writing, which won't be out until 2024, I'm doing the same again. Like the love interest is disabled, and when they're having sex, they
Mhm.
talk about that. Not at first because they don't know it. They don't both know at first, but they have a conversation about that. And like when they talk about it, it doesn't change that he wants to shag him. And it doesn't it's just like, "Oh, I just maybe just need to have like, think about something else while we're doing
Mhm.
it, so, like, make sure you're comfortable." But, I mean, everyone should be doing that with their partner anyway, like, checking
Mhm.
emotionally and physically and making sure everyone's having a good, safe time. Um, yeah, my kidlit MO is very, like, "I want kids to see themselves and see themselves being the hero." And my
Mhm.
adult my adult romance MO is, "I want people to know that disabled people fuck." That's literally it. And I tell you, for a project I cannot talk about for another few months, I said that in a meeting recently, and like they were all like, "Okay, yeah, sure." But like, I think it's so important because you know we have relationships. We
Mhm.
don't necessarily have relationships with people who are also disabled, which I think is another misconception. It's like we only go like find each other, but that's not always true. Like
Mhm.
interabled relationships and some of us want to fuck. Not everyone wants to fuck, that's fine. Everyone can do what they want, but I kind of want it to have that conversation that we
Mhm.
can be desirable and
Yeah.
have desires,
I
like,
think
because I think both of the things.
a part of being disabled is definitely like, again, because of lack of representation, is like the problem with, I can never say this word, infantilization, in
Yeah.
the uh like, at least in my experience, like, I feel, I mean, I look very young anyway, so like I am just treated younger than I am anyway, which is fine. But I do find it is like on steroids when I'm like using a mobility aid or in a wheelchair or anything. Like I went to Disney in Florida like a year ago now, and I had to use a wheelchair while I was there. Um, and it was very different. I had one day where I didn't use a wheelchair, and the rest of the time I did. And the way I was treated in a wheelchair versus out of it, like I think you just end up picking up on stuff. Like I went to like the, oh, what is it? Is it Magic Kingdom? Like the main park. I went to that
Mm.
and I was in my wheelchair and I had my little princess dress on because it's Disney, so I'm gonna go all out. And there were these lovely ladies who kept telling me like how pretty I was and how cute I was. But it's that thing of like, if I wasn't in a wheelchair, they would have either said it differently or not said it at all. But it's that thing of like, they either feel sorry for you, so they're like, oh, I'll try and make their day better, or
Yeah.
they
I think especially in
think,
Disney because of the like people associate Disney with Make-A-Wish kids.
yes,
And so I think that can be a place where disability can be like very strange because like one of the things I think able people don't understand is that Disney is like amazing for accessibility.
yes,
Like for a lot of disabled people, like going to Disneyland Paris a couple of years ago with some of my friends without Tim was one of the most accessible holidays I've ever had because we could go in the exit to get on the rides and like we had the passes to sit, away from everyone else and like
mm-hmm,
if you want to do meet and greets with characters, you can book a time, which
mm-hmm,
is just so much better for like autistic kids because then you can be like, no, we're going to go at this time and they will be there and we will see
mm-hmm,
them immediately. Um, it's so good, but then yeah, there can be you're still interacting with the general public who
yeah,
can still also be a bit like weird about disability stuff. One of my
yeah,
favorite things is my mobility scooter usually when we go walk the dog because at the minute like I'm still like regaining and balancing a lot of my energy and because I'm on deadline for a lot of books. I think people don't think of it this way, but like writing books is really physical.
mm-hmm,
Like I write what have I written this year? I finished one Christmas romance in January. So I wrote about 40,000 words in January. I've written 60,000 words since
oh
then.
my god,
I'm I'm about to write probably that again. And it's like that's a lot of typing every day,
mm-hmm,
and it's a lot of shoulder effort. It's a lot of like sitting,
yeah,
but like controlling your posture. It's a lot of physicality. And so with energy budgeting with disability, I can either walk on my legs with the
mm-hmm,
dog, or I could probably work a couple of days.
mm-hmm,
And so I usually pick the mobility scooter so I can go out and have a nice time and not like pop a hip out. But when we're going around, sometimes I'm conscious of the fact that like I'm much more lower to the ground than I even am now. I'm only like 5'3", so I'm already pretty short. But then my partner is like 6'4".
Mhm.
Um, and so I think people get surprised if like he kisses me. So I like to hold his hand when I'm driving and just be like, and then I sometimes clock people looking at us like, huh, what is that? What is that
I
situation?
don't understand this.
I feel like the place I get it most is Sainsbury's because I always use my mobility scooter if we're gonna do a supermarket shop.
Mhm.
I've started to get really good with like doing a drive-by, pick something up as I drive past. That's like I'm starting to like Mario Kart it.
Mhm.
If I like go up to him, I'm like, oh, I got this. Like, oh, I'll meet you in a bit. Like, love you. Bye. I sometimes see people be a bit like, what? Like, just
Mm.
I'm so not used to. I think as well, like, um, seeing I think I also get read for younger than I am. I'm nearly 35. But I think I used to get read a lot more as younger, way younger than I was when I was thin. Now I'm quite fat. People just don't know how to read my age at all. So they're just like, oh yeah, sure. Um, and so I think that like youngish on a scooter with
Mhm.
handsome husband, what? And like I think people just can't compute that.
Mhm.
And yeah, which is a pity because it means that they might be missing out on some like hot disabled people who want to bone.
Yeah, which is your favorite thing.
Hot disabled singles in your area.
It is though. I think it is like and it also is that thing of like feeling like a disabled person's partner is like a hero for like being with you and stuff like that. Like
Oh my god. Yeah.
when we were at Disney, my my boyfriend probably didn't notice it, but I did, and it was like people were like overly nice to him, and then also like overly nice to me, and like although it
Hmm.
is Disney, like they are like their job is to be overly nice because that's like the Disney motto. But it is that thing of like, I've been to Disney, not in a wheelchair, and like, yes, they are nice, but they don't treat me like I'm a little special, I don't know, princess royalty thing. Like they just treat you like you're at Disney.
Yeah.
And so it is very different. And like I'll tell you, I mean, hey, you're gonna be nicer to me, I'll take it, that's fine. But I think it is just like abled people do not know how to act around disabled people because they have no experience of it, or they think they have no experience of it. Like they probably
Yeah.
have met a disabled person but just didn't even know it, and so now they're
Yeah.
just feeling all like it. Like when I go to I was gonna say a lot, not a lot, I go to gaming PR events every now and then when I'm lucky enough to be invited, and it is that thing of I see that people treat me like, as far as like other content creators, they definitely treat me differently when I have like a mobility aid with me versus
Yeah.
when I don't. And I think it is that thing of like people just don't know how to act. They don't know how to be around disabled people. They don't know whether they should help or not help or anything like that. And so, bless them, everybody's doing their best. But it is that thing of like, if they had seen more disabled people in media or throughout their life, then they probably would just, it would be normal. So it
Yeah.
wouldn't be like a rarity like they think it is now.
Yeah.
And so I just think,
I I always say to Tim that like because he's been with me for so long, he's allowed to like enjoy those good man cookies. So like if he's been looking after me at home and then goes to work and they're like, "Oh, you're so good for like staying home and looking after them." I always say to him like, "Yeah, do you know what? Just say I am
I am.
actually.
I'm an angel.
I'm a saint."
Mm-hmm.
When it's like, as he was saying in our group chat, we were talking about going on holiday, and I was like, "Oh, we can leave Neris," and someone was like, "What about?" So my dog is a seizure alert dog, but also my pet dog. And we were like, well, oh, what if Hux has one? And Tim is like, oh, it's really easy. You just point to them and say, oh, it's a seizure. And it's like that literally, that it literally is most of it. So I'm like, yeah, like that, I don't mind you exploiting that they think
Yeah.
you're a bit better. That's why I always say to people, if my my close friends, if you want a good excuse to not do anything, I always invite them to say that they're looking after me because I've had a seizure, because people don't understand what seizures are at the best of
Mm-hmm.
times and what like living with seizures is. And I'm always like, just use me as an excuse, because they'll think that you're a saint and really you can just be at home in your pajamas. They're like, because like at some point, like you've seen me have a seizure, like at some point someone will have to like look after me when I've had a seizure. So I figure you may as well get the bonus of everyone thinking you're good for it.
It is just
It's
like
like, yeah.
it's like the little like I'm trying to think of, like, I thought of this the other day where like um being disabled is shit sometimes. Like, it just is. Like, I talk a lot about how disability is just neutral. Like, it's not a good thing, it's a bad thing. It just is. But it is shit sometimes. Like, I
Yeah.
would rather not be in pain all the time. That'd be great.
Hmm.
And so to make up for that, like, for instance, at Disney, I'm gonna use the little skipper queue. I'm gonna use
Yeah.
it because I don't get a skipper queue in life. I don't know. There's a metaphor in there somewhere. Um, and so it is that thing of like, I'm gonna take it. If Disney people are going to be extra nice to me, sure, I will have it, because there's people online that are really mean to me. So I'll take niceties in person. That'd be really good.
Literally.
Thanks.
Yeah, I got like my first R word in ages, like a few months ago. And
Mm.
I was like, do you know what? I'm gonna remember this, but only for like when I'm like, no, I deserve a perk.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Just bring
get a
it back.
perk for this.
Yeah.
Right, I'm gonna write to a restaurant and be like, "Can I skip a queue? I'm disabled." Which, by the way, they often will let you do. I forever email restaurants in London that don't take bookings to be like, as an access consideration, would you take my booking? And they almost always say yes. So that's a wee top tip for any disabled people watching, because
Mm-hmm.
it makes them feel good that they've done
Yes, that
something
they've
nice.
done
Oh,
something
where's
to
my dog
help.
barking?
Uh-oh.
I don't know. Tim is in the other room playing D&D. So, hello? The door is opening.
Is she
I don't know
there?
what's happening. Hello? Nerys? Oh, her little head's just popped around the door. Like,
Oh.
are you coming in? Anyway, did we get? I forgot to ask because I keep like going off on tangents.
Mm.
We had questions. Are we that
Well, we
we
sort
had
of
on the list?
covered
Are
them
we?
just by
Oh, okay. Well, that's
chatting.
fine.
So there's only one that we haven't covered just by like having a little chat.
Perfect.
Um, and it was wait, I've lost it. Oh, actually there was two that we didn't cover. One of them was the importance of like creating community when you're disabled.
Ooh.
And like how nice it is, because I tell people all the time whenever I have to talk to like a therapist or a doctor, I'm always like, I have this group of pals and like 90% of us are disabled, and it's really nice because we just moan at each other and we get it, which is lovely.
Yeah, it
Um,
is nice.
and I do think that it is like I've mentioned before, like I'm just terrible in social situations face to face. Like virtually, absolutely fine. Not so much in person. And so I've talked to you in like the group chat before about how I just want to do networking virtually. And I basically did that, and that is how I now have like my current groups of friends. Is just I met everybody online, and then at some point met them in person, and that was great. And that is, if anything, like an accommodation for
Yeah.
being autistic, in that I don't want to meet people in real life. I don't know how to talk to people. I physically don't know how. And so it's just nice. And I think in terms of like Twitch and stuff, we talked about this a bit on Wednesday, where um, particularly on like all social media platforms, but particularly on Twitch, you sort of attract people that are like you.
Mm.
And so I feel that very much having disabled content creators is so wonderful, because people can find people like themselves. Like you can find people and be like, oh, I have like fibro, I have autism, I have EDS, and like so do you. And so like if I come in and say like, oh, my EDS has been shit today, like you'll get it. And I love that about online communities, and I think they
Mm.
although it does give a lot of terrible people access to you, it also gives really nice people access to you to hang out with and stuff, which is wonderful.
Definitely. I didn't I think I've told you this before, but like the when I joined Twitter when I was in hospital, so when you have a seizure disorder, if they can't work out quite if you have epilepsy or not, what they'll do is something called a VEEG. So an EEG is where you get all like stickered up and
Mm-hmm.
they look at your brain waves. A VEEG is where they do that and stick you in a room in a hospital for a unknown length of time until you've had like three, and they have loads of cameras on you, and like if you go for a piss, like someone will knock on your door like 30 seconds in, because like that's the only place they can't have a camera, and everyone
Mm-hmm.
always has a seizure when they go for a piss. So they're always like, are you on the floor, are you on the floor? But so I joined Twitter. I think I'd already got an account, but I started using Twitter in earnest then, because like I said to them, like, how long am I going to be here? And they were like, well, as long as it takes you to have
Mm-hmm.
three seizures. And like, I don't think it will surprise anyone to know that like being on a neurology ward, even though I had a private room, um it was not very fun. There were a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who were in pain outside and crying in the night, and so I was like, do you know what, I am gonna boss this. I am gonna have three seizures in 3 days. Oh my god, there's my dog going again. I'm gonna have three seizures in 3 days, and then I'm gonna go home and play like Halo for like a month. Oh no, it was Fable 3, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
that'll probably like tell date this. And so on Twitter, I would go on Twitter and be like, who's got any ideas of how I'm gonna have my
Mm-hmm.
next seizure? And just be like, kind of like making a cute joke about it. And
Yeah.
so they would be like, oh, have you tried this? Like, or be like, there was a game in like, I don't know if it exists anymore. This is like 2009. There was a game where you put in a song and it made like a roller coaster course kind of of like
Oh,
flashing lights. Audio
yeah.
surf, I think. No, maybe that's not the right name, but something like that. And so I would have people like, I would be like, pick a song that you think would make the flashiest courses. Turns out it was Electric Light Orchestra, not Mr. Blue Sky, Twilight. That was a
Mm-hmm.
great one. Had a seizure straight away. And like, that's kind of how I like started using it to try
Mm-hmm.
and talk openly about disability stuff and what I was going through. And a
Yeah.
bunch of people who followed me then still follow me now and like
I love that.
support my books and
Yeah.
stuff. Kind of terrifying that they've known me since I was like 20, but or however old I was then. Yeah, 20, something like 21, 19 maybe. But I really loved that part of it in a way. And
Mm-hmm.
like I whenever I'm like in an EDS flare, I can always talk to someone on Twitter or
Mm-hmm.
like read some silly messages. Oh my god, my stomach just went whoa, and
If
my
it helps, you didn't
microphone.
pick it up, so you're fine.
Seriously, like my microphone is like down here, so I was like, that's 100% gone on there. It's the crotch mic. And so I really loved that part of it because that connected me like directly to
Mm-hmm.
other people who weren't necessarily disabled but were interested in talking about my experiences and understanding it. And I've stayed that way all the way through. I mean, so I did an anthology in 2020 that I crowdfunded in 2018 to 2019, I think, called STEM, which is an anthology of autistic people's writing and art, which
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a response actually for me being like, I'm only seeing stories about us, not by us, and it's
Mm-hmm.
only representing a very limited set of our creativity. Um, and that came from me talking about my diagnostic experiences and like starting to understand myself as an autistic person and using Twitter for that. So I think that like as a disabled person, like social media can be like so um useful for that. I just saw the little man
Sorry,
walk
yeah,
in.
Bruno's back in the room.
He's
he
so
was
cute.
he was just outside and now he's come in to lay down. Little man. Sorry.
He's
Stream can't see him, so I keep looking down and it just looks like I'm getting distracted, but it's just him being a cutie pie. Oh,
he's so
you.
cute. I want
So
mine to come back. She like looked in, drank some water, and then left, and then stood in the corridor screaming.
oh, wait, no. He like does this thing where sometimes he'll like be like, I want to be picked up, and then as soon as you pick him up, he's like, no, actually, I want you to chase me. I'm lying. And it's like, okay, well now, well, I'm not gonna chase you right now. So, and he just did
I'm
it
gonna
just
find
then.
my one because I don't know where she's gone.
um,
I need to shut this door anyway. I'm still here.
Besides all the haters and toxic people, the internet is still really nice. It is like that's the thing. It is very much like if you can curate your online environments, which you can luckily with like Twitch and Twitter and stuff like that, like it's really, really nice. Are you asking to be picked up or are you lying to me? What are you? I'm not going to chase you. I'm not doing it. Oh, he's lying to me. Oh, look at little Neris.
Where's my baby? She was sitting on the front doormat looking really sad. So.
Oh, look at her.
Look, you're
No,
Is
he's
that
just
cool?
he's brought me a toy. So this is like my replacement
Aww,
Bruno. He brought me his toy.
that's so cute.
There we go. I had one last question.
Yeah,
It may not have an answer, but just if you do, because I don't think I do. So, but do you have like a happy moment where you saw yourself represented in a piece of media, and like if so, what was it? Where you're like, that's me. I am them. That's me.
yeah. I think the Quinny from Heartbreak High moment that I mentioned at the beginning
Mm,
probably is part of that. Like seeing her like jumping around and like being autistically happy was the big one. And that's definitely like from an autism POV. I think in terms of like EDS or like physical disability stuff, there's a book series I really love by Talia Hibbert, which
mm,
they're spicy romance. It's called the Brown Sisters series, and Get a Life Chloe Brown is about a girl. It says she has fibromyalgia, but the way everything is described sounds more like EDS, which I think
mm,
the author actually has as well, because she talks about like joint weakness and stuff. Um, but that is like a fun, sexy romance, and she has chronic pain, and he like helps her out, and it's just really cute. So I think
yeah.
that was the first one, and it kind of made me think that maybe I could write disabled romances as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like that's probably my ones. What about you?
I think my only one so far has been Sun Spider, which was so recent. And I didn't even get to see it because I went to the bathroom. But it was just so nice to even just hear like that they were gonna be in a movie. Like I was like, oh
Yeah,
my god. Because I feel like EDS itself is not like it's not like a rare disorder like in terms of like hypermobile EDS, but in terms of like seeing it represented, it is.
yeah,
And so that was like so nice to be like, oh my god, this exact thing that I have it is here. Look at that. That's
yeah,
beautiful. So it was just very much that where I was like, oh, and I think it for me it's more I have seen myself represented in like real people in terms of like content creators or like celebrities and stuff like that has been wonderful. Um, and also like autistic content creators that are just very openly autistic and like people love them for it. Like they love
yeah,
them with that, if that makes sense.
yeah,
And not just like I feel like a lot of my fear as a disabled person is like, do people just feel sorry for me because I don't want them to? I just want people to like me. It's all I want. And so I think it is like wonderful seeing content creators being so open about it. And also just it's nice to just have people sort of like where you can see like they're going through something and you're going through the same thing as well.
yeah,
So I think that's really wonderful. And I saw it with the Agata stream on Wednesday where it was like people being like, "Oh, chronically ill people as well, like that's so wonderful," and it matters. Like representation does matter, and it is so wonderful, especially when like seeing yourself is so rare. Seeing
yeah,
yourself represented is wonderful. especially because like don't go looking for them. But there were replies under like the actual tweet from Elgato where it was like the world's ending disability pride month, or like, oh, I think they're faking their disabilities, and it's like, good, I
Ugh.
hope you're annoyed, I hope you're pissed off, you weird anonymous
Yeah.
person who literally could have just said nothing but just
Yeah.
is just being annoying on Twitter for the day.
And
um
also, like, so often, like, those sorts of weird responses can also come from like people who aren't disabled, but also people who are, or people who are
mm,
tangentially close to disability, like parents of autistic kids who maybe haven't clocked that they are themselves autistic.
mm-hmm,
Often, if their kid has high support needs, they get quite angry with like those of us who, uh, from appearance, don't have high support
mm-hmm,
needs, which I think is a misconception from like I think people probably presume that I'm much more independent than I am, and I would say I'm quite independent, but I still have support needs.
mm-hmm,
Um, quite like that Tim helps me manage. Um, so I think like yeah, it's that thing where it's like from some people it's like, oh, this is different and I don't like it. And then from some other people, this is like, oh, it doesn't match my one experience.
yeah,
And then it must be a lie. And it's
mm-hmm,
like the whole swathe of humanity is very different. We're all very different
yeah,
individuals. So it's like, I think there might be like a few differences in that. Like I read a really good book recently called Imogen Obviously by Becky Albertalli, which is a YA book. Becky Albertalli famously wrote Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agendum, which became Love, Simon. And Becky was kind of hounded in the YA and queer community for a long time as being a queer, like a straight fetishizer,
mm,
and then was outed essentially as being bisexual, and like she was still working out, and it was just awful. And she kind of wrote a book about like um compulsory heterosexuality and also the way that queer gatekeepers can keep people in the closet because of
mm-hmm.
the way we talk about stuff. And sometimes I wonder like, oh, maybe in like 10 years, what if there's a disability in one of those? But I'm just like, feel like it'd be way, way darker. I don't think it would be like a nice little YA romance.
No.
I think it would just be like me. No, it could go to some dark places. But like, I think a lot about that, about like who's on the other end of these messages, like what's their experience and why are they so presumptuous that the things that we're doing and can perceptions of what we can and can't do are so like offensive to them. I find it very curious. I want to dig into their psyches, but they're
Yeah.
like random little trolls, so I should
Yeah.
just
Like
not care.
I think it is okay, I'm gonna plug like the title of the stream over and over again. I think it is like a lack of representation. Cause like for instance, the guy who was like, I think you're faking being disabled. Like his whole thing from like if I'm looking at it like, oh, he just wants to make sure that no one's faking a disability because that's a bad thing. So I can almost be like, oh, you were trying to do a good thing. You're just doing it from a. Because then he went on to say, like, I just like sarcastically asked, like, because he said, like, alarm bells are going off. And I was like, what alarm bells, good sir? And he was like, blue hair, pronouns. And I was like, that is in fact the scientific criteria for faking a disability. Thank you. So, like, although I was with him at first, I was like, yeah, no, you're trying to do your best. You're trying to make sure people aren't faking disabilities. I get that. And then it just went to there, and I was like, okay, I tried.
That's so funny because like uh two things so commonly associated with neurodivergence are like brightly colored hair and
Uh huh.
like maybe being queer.
Yeah,
Like
it was
I would
so
say
odd.
if anything,
Oh,
they are probably hallmarks of the the
yes, of
disabled.
being disabled.
Like literally I had the same color hair as you like 5 years ago. Like I used to color my hair all the time. I just got really lazy. I'm
Mm,
tempted to start doing it again. And I miss having like pink hair. It was so cute on
it
me.
did suit you.
Um, but I'm also lazy. I don't know if you can't tell. My arm is moving a lot, which probably looks weird, but the dog is like curled up next to me. I'm just like
Oh,
stroking her.
Bruno's now curled up on his blanket, so I can pull my chair in again. There we go. Um, Yeah, so it is again, like if there was more disability representation, like I get you, an honest person, you are trying to do God's good work in making sure no one's faking disability. Because people do like particularly I think in the age of like clickbait and like funny little pranks and stuff, people do that. But I just feel like you're barking up the wrong tree, good sir. You have the wrong reasons under your belt, but thanks for trying to protect us from ourselves. Thank you. That's nice. Um,
Oh, there's
so
so many layers of poo for different interactions you can get
yes.
online, but there we go.
Um, so bless. But that's like all of my questions. We just had a nice little chat that just like covered all
Yeah,
of them. So I love that. Um, and so I just wanted also, hey, Mr. Geiser, I'm sorry that you came in just so I finished all that. How many people are actually faking if that guy challenges everyone they interact with? The chances are they won't even meet one person faking. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't. It's very. I don't know what he was trying to. I don't know. Because at first I thought it was a bot, which was why I replied because I wanted to see, and then it wasn't a bot. So then I was just like let down by life. But it's
I
fine.
mean, the blue heron pronouns is a transphobic whistle, so I think they were probably a turf account because like there's a few things that turf accounts tend to like say, like a few like key phrases,
Mm.
and oh, blue heron pronouns is like
I'll see.
one of them.
Yeah, maybe it just was. Oh no, I don't want to respond to that because I don't know where it's going. Um, and I just yeah, I do get the whole blue hair and pronouns a lot, and I'm like, you also have pronouns. I'm sorry that you're a brunette. I apologize. But also like we all have pronouns. I don't know, buddy. Just because mine are in on display, I don't know what to tell you. We're all
It
here.
does It does get tiring being a disabled person online. Thank you for asking, Infame 1907. It does get tiring because we have to manage our energy levels in order to
Mhm.
be on streams like this and deal with
Mhm.
painkillers and, our memory issues and energy budgeting. So thank you for being so compassionate in asking if it's tiring being a disabled person, because that definitely is the question that you're asking us. Thank you.
It does. Also, like, you know what else is tiring? Painkillers that don't work. Took a really strong painkiller before the stream and it didn't do anything. So now I'm just pissed off. So that's
No.
tiring. But anyway, that was the end of all of my questions that I had. We had a cute little chat and I loved it.
It was so nice.
So thank you for coming on and doing this with me. I had a
It's
great
awesome.
time.
It was a
Thank you
great
for
time.
lending me yourself for a couple of hours. I appreciate.
I like those sounds that like was just like, yeah, like lent out, you've been piloting me.
Yeah.
My brain was just like, yes, like a cyborg. What?
Yes, exactly. Um, but I
No, you can jump
but
that way. That's where all the cables are.
oh no.
Sorry. Trying
Oh,
to
look at you. You're so cute.
she's a good girl. Didn't she almost jumped through the ring
Directly,
light bit
yeah.
where there's
Just hear
where
a
you can't.
crash.
Yeah, that would have been bad. All right,
Um,
I should probably let you go because
well, I before I let you do a little outro and tell people where to find you, I want to thank our sponsors again. Thank you so much to Mulk, Elgato, and Splash Damage for sponsoring this stream. You guys are incredible. I'm very, very cute, and thank you because it enabled me to hire a graphic designer, Ira, who did all these wonderful graphics. Look at how cute they are. So pretty. Look at the gradient. It's Disability Pride
yeah,
colors, in case no one noticed, by the way. It's just
they're
like a
so
lighter
cute.
version of the Disability Pride colors, if no one noticed. So thank you so much for sponsoring the stream.
Thanks.
And Hux, please tell everybody where they can find you, where you're at, what you that stuff. Yeah.
What are you?
Yeah.
You can find me basically anywhere as at LittleHux. I do technically have an account on Twitch, but I don't do anything here. I just follow Molly, and that's like it. And like other people. You can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Instagram. They're where I'm most active. I'm also on Blue Sky, and I'm on TikTok intermittently. I just to remind you, I am an author. I write children's fantasy novels. So if you like Percy Jackson but want it with full of disabled kids and Welsh myth and a bit of Arthuriana, that's Vivi Conway and the Sword of Legend, which is out now in paperback, with the sequel coming out in May next year. And my dog's ringing the bell to go outside. And I also write queer Christmas romances. This is Make You Mine This Christmas. This is the Afterlight special edition, which only a handful left are available to buy, I believe, on the Illumicrate website, but it's out in paperback in English on September the 28th and in German on September the 26th, where it's called Weihnachten nur du und ich. If any of you are German, sorry that I said that so badly. I don't speak German. Maris, please stop ringing the bell to go out. I will let you out in a minute. But yeah, I'm at LittleHux everywhere, and I write disabled queer stories all the time, and I also share a lot of what I'm reading, and a lot of what I'm reading is books by other disabled and queer authors. So, and I talk about media and stuff a little bit, but also there's a lot of shit posts at the moment. There's a lot of jelly bean chat because I'm on deadline, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's not going to get more sane for the
As
rest of
time
the
goes
year.
on.
This is probably the best I'm going to look for the next 6 months, and I'm already on the edge of sanity. But yeah, it's been so nice speaking to you all. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you very much to Molly for having me. It's been very nice to be a streamer for the night. I was like, I went to see Barbie and I was like, I've got to go, I'm streaming. And I was like, I'm a streamer, guys. I've got to go.
So profesh. I love it. Also,
But
Josie, thank you for the resub. I wanted to get that in before I missed it because my memory is like a sieve. But thank you so much for joining us, Hux. If you are new to my stream, hello, I'm LittleMoTAC. You can find me everywhere under LittleMoTAC except for Twitter where it has an underscore because I stole LittleMoTAC from myself when I was 19. And now I can't get it back, so it will forever have an underscore. And I'm also LittleMoTAC Gaming on, LittleMoTAC Gaming on TikTok and YouTube. I'm trying to get some subscribers over on the LittleMoTAC Gaming YouTube account so that I can maybe monetize some stuff over there one day. So if you want to subscribe over there, that would be so handy, and I would love you forever. And if you just want to have my videos playing on in the background to get the watch hours up, that'd be great. Okay, that's enough plugging of myself. Also, I should plug these streams. We have 2 more streams for Disability Pride Month left. We have one next Friday, which is on the cost of being disabled, like time and money-wise, with Obi-Wan Shinobi and Melee Mira. And then we have hopefully, Twitch have said yes. We have one next Saturday also, which I believe is the 29th of July, which should be on the front page of Twitch, which will just be a general discussion of like all the topics we have covered across these streams so far, and that'll be with Radders, Evoltigam, Obi-Wan Shinobi, and Laura K. Buzz, I believe. I might have mixed that up because I had 2 different streams, so I'm so sorry if I got the names wrong. But yes, so I will see you hopefully next Friday or Saturday, and if not, I just do regular streams Wednesday to Friday of gaming and shizzle if you want to come hang out for that. But if not, I post content elsewhere. I think that's everything that I have to mention.
And people can catch up on your older streams.
Yes.
From the last month.
Yes, the VODs will be going up on YouTube. I think last Friday's one is still up on Twitch, but then it lasts like 2 weeks. So all the VODs will be going up on youtube.com/LittleMoTAC Gaming in August, and also I'll be posting like little clips on like Twitter and TikTok and stuff and all that. Diversify your content is what they tell you, so I'm doing that. So if you missed, you can catch up. And I just appreciate y'all being here. It's been really nice, and just these streams have been just a joy. I just get to chat to wonderful, wonderful people, and I'm very grateful for that. And then I get to hang out with wonderful, wonderful people in chat. So thank you so much for doing that. And especially like disabled people, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me your time, because that is like very precious to us, and also able-bodied people, if you're here, thank you for coming and being willing to learn and listen and stuff. That's really nice. So thank you to everybody. I appreciate it, and I'll see you either next Friday for this type of stream or next Wednesday for a gaming stream. Okay, goodbye.